Greetings, fellow Nerf maniacs. Now, first up, sorry about the last movie being so short. Where we left off last time was I glued that, put a plate on the inside and cut it, and because it made it so stiff, I did the same thing on this side even though it didn't need to be adjusted. So I'll draw that out and get that going. Okay, now, this has been moving on. I'm going to do, this is going to be sort of a universal weapon, all things to all soldiers. And because the society I envision it in is small number of soldiers, each soldier's got to be perform multiple tasks or different tasks at any given time. So they're going to have their basic weapon, but to that there are additions. There's going to be a silencer that each soldier gets issued with. I'll just dress that up a little bit, it doesn't need much. There is going to be a grenade launcher that clicks on underneath. There is the handle, that's got to be major modified, but that won't be too hard. The handle will be the standard issue, and the standard issue magazine will probably be a curved one because it looks better. So, but a couple other things. There's going to be a heavy barrel sniper attachment. So that's the front of the Centurion, and I've just put a locking ring from the inside of one of these things in it. What do you call that? It's the front barrel off the Retaliator, I think. So that's just mounted in there. The locking, spring-loaded locking pin that was in the base of this, in there. Now what I'm going to do with that pin, that is going to go into a piece of brass tube that it fit perfectly. There it is, a little piece of brass tube, and I'm going to put a slightly stronger spring in there, and all that little bit of brass tube will go in there, because when you put that on there like that, it lines up perfectly with the original locking point. Put a bipod on there. I'm not sure about using a Nerf bipod because they're pretty chunky. I'll either buy an aftermarket one off eBay, you can get them for about 20 bucks, or I'll fabricate one out of some light gauge aluminium and some. And what I'm also going to do in that barrel, I found this came out of the Retaliator front end. It's got this brilliant little spacer here, so that will fit. Let me get the barrel out. That will fit down the barrel with minimal shaving off, so that will actually hold this barrel inside this barrel, and I'll get another one and put it at the other end. So that will, when you put this whole unit on the front of the gun, click, that the large barrel will be outside, sitting outside that, but this will, I'll actually make it so this actually fits into the actual recess in there. So bullet's getting all messed up and flopping about. There's the actual barrel. So if you're using it as a sniper rifle or a heavy machine gun, sort of the same things are needed. You need a heavy barrel, can take the wear, can take the heat. So yeah, it could double as a heavy machine gun, and instead of a single round mag, you put in your big 18 round mag from your Alpha Trooper. But what I'm going to do is use magazine boxes and build that as a square box. I'm going to use magazine size and build a square box around that, simply to hide the roundness. I just want like a box instead, and it's going to be cool because it still sits out one side like it's supposed to. I had a question, and a couple of somebody didn't quite understand what I was talking about because it was all silent, so I thought I'd do it in talkie movies. So what I've done, I've taken a, what do they call it, the jam door off this, off the long shot, and I've cut it in half and put it back in, and it fits in its grooves. It's just wider. Now that's not an issue for me, because once I glue the jam door in, because I'm not going to need it, I'm just going to cut another piece and glue it over the top. Hide that, so very little filling to do. But the question was, what was that brownish greasy stuff I used? And that's my goo glue. That's just a mixture of Nerf parts that don't have any factory applied paint on them, And when I say factory applied paint, I mean something like that blue part off the Rapid Strike, the white paint. Because you don't want anything in that jar other than cut off nerve parts and even tiny little bits like that, and acetone. What you do is splash some acetone in there, fill up with nerve parts, and within about 12-24 hours it's melted all down. You can start using it. Keep it in a glass jar and vent it every now and then. Let the gas out. And if it gets a bit stodgy and stick and hard to use, you can just pour some more acetone in, which is what I did yesterday, and it's nice and soft again. So the procedure is, I'm going to pull these out and put acetone in the grooves where it normally sits to soften the plastic. Then I'll trowel in some of my goo glue and position these. And once they're positioned, I'm then going to use a method called Capillary Action, which is just getting some acetone on a brush and just running it along these joints, because the acetone melts the nerve plastic, so I'll help melt those together and join them together. Okay, so I'll leave the camera running. I'll just move it out of the way a bit and I'll get on with it. So first, got my acetone, and I'll just put a little bit in the lid here. You don't need much, and remember it's a solvent, so it's, you know, not the greatest of stuff. Just applying it in. See, I spilled some on my fingers and it's already stuck my fingerprint to the acetone for that up there. Just be careful with the stuff and try not to touch it anywhere with those fingers now. Okay, so that's my acetone on there, and you saw how quick it worked, so it's already started to soften the plastic. So what I'm going to do is put some goo on there. And so that one goes on that side, so I'm going to whack some acetone on that, just on the little protrusion that sticks out that actually fits into that groove. That's what you call it a groove. Okay, I got my groove back. So, as you can see, I've pushed that in there and there's a little ridge of my goo out there. I'm not going to try and clean that up yet. When it's dry, you just run a knife across that way and a knife down that way and just pull straight out. Goo the other side. This stuff is just, the goo is just that colour simply because it's been predominantly made out of yellow and red. Nerf offcuts. So, now I've got to get it back level with that ridge. This would be so good if it was easy. There we go, and pull that into that groove on that side. Now to hold that there, I'm going to just stick something in between there that will hold. Okay, by having that little thing down there, it's forcing these into their respective grooves. So, now that that's done, I'll just get my acetone and go along the joint. This is mainly so it joins up at this top end and at the front. And what I want to do just to dress it up a bit is put some holes in here. And what I've done, I've just used a felt tip to drill where I think they look good enough. That's a pretty good spacing. Now on the other side you can see I've drawn the actual pencil line of this entire void on both sides, so I know where to put it. So just a quick bit of measuring. So that void is, what's that, 88 long. Yeah, it's about 45, but 88 long's alright, so I'll write that down, 88. Right. Now that I've got a nice sharp craft blade, I'll cut this piece of paper again. So what I want to do is make sure this wraps around the barrel, but only goes over that area once, which it does. Good. Now, first thing I'm going to do is put it back in the housing just to make sure it can fit easily. Yep, there we go. Simply by rotating, and I can rotate one of the heavier lines up to a meeting point. And okay, that's a little bit too high. What I'm trying to get is the same distance from the top edge of that, so the graph paper's in the same place, and that's about right. Now that I've got the graph paper lined up where I want it, I can actually put a screw through this hole into the outer barrel, which won't reach the inner barrel. So that will make it so much easier to hold that in place while I drill these holes. Okay. So my barrel's held in place. Okay, so now the whole reason I put it into graph paper on is I'm going to put these series of holes. Now I have to take into account the size of the hole I'm actually going to drill. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to use these major intersections, because there's a heavier line every 10th line, and just mark. So I've got 4 holes there, so I'll have 3 there, so there, 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 and there. So the next ones are very simple in between. That's it. I'll use the Dremel because I've got a lot more control with that. Alright, so now with much care and skill I'm going to attempt to drill a pilot hole at each one of those marks. There we go. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to take these screws out, the whole barrel out of the fore end, take the inner barrel out and drill those holes. Okay, so take that off. Okay, right, so screws out, we can push the inner barrel out. So we can now take this off, we don't have to worry about keeping this intact. And there's all our holes ready to go. Now the thing is, what I might do is use a wood bit, because they've got these little sharp points on the end, and that will allow me to put that in the actual hole, so I'm very accurate. The trick to doing this without destroying all that hard work is to brace the pipe you're going to drill from the inside. Right, okay. Found a piece of pipe that almost fits, and then I just wrapped it with some paper towel, so it's reasonably solid. So I'm just holding it vertical, try and keep the drill vertical, and just go through very slowly. That one's done, and I get a little orange disc out. So that's pretty good. So if I just go into do that each one. Right, so there we go. There's all our little cut holes, and each one of them just pops out. If you want to take that off, they should all just fall off. There we go. Look at that. Yep, most of them went away. 1 or 2 a little bit stubborn. So a nice sand with sandpaper will get rid of all that burr. Do the same on the inside. There's our little air vents in our barrel. Pretty cool. I'm pretty chuffed with that. Primarily because it worked. Now I have done this sort of thing before. Sponge pad should do. So I'm going to have to do some very careful trimming with the craft knife, but what you do is you just run it around the edge. You see, you don't want to gouge out a bit of the wall, as I said, because it will just stick out. It'll be, you know, like a red flag. Another thing you can do is, if you've got a round file that fits, just stick it in each hole and just give it a little twist. But in theory you could do that around the entire circumference of the surface. Get your perforated muzzle brake. That's it, done. Looks pretty good. So it's about like that. Pretty cool, eh? Just makes it look a bit different. Right guys, I've got my supports for the inner barrel where I want them, so I'm just painting around the edge with a bit of acetone. That's all you need. You know, I can feel it going sticky. I mean, as soon as you put it on, it just takes off the felt tip. So just paint around the edge, use gravity to help you. Paint that, put it all together, have that sub-assembly done, and I can move on. Alright. Right, hi guys. Now, just show you what I've got. All today's work has been involved with the barrel extension. So, what we've got is our painted barrel. Now, this is going inside. This is also going to be painted a metallic colour. And I've taped off the actual supports, because when I want to glue this, I want to be able to, you know, glue plastic to plastic, not plastic to paint. So that's what it's going to look like. So that goes in there like that. And I've got using all 4 of these screw holes to secure it in. So what we do is place it on the the blaster, then I can just line up the holes. So the inner barrel is bedded in that barrel. This is the outer barrel. So that'll take a screw, and the last thing is my little integral laser sight, which is going to go there. So that's going to be a complete unit. That's just going to be glued on. I have to do some filling on this and cut a back plate. And that's it for this stage. So, and I'll see you next time.